The Encounter by Vincent6273. This is meant to be a cautionary sharing of the encounter I had, and to not speak, joke, or disrespect the names of certain beings or whistle at night. You probably know what I am talking about. This is a true story that my friends and I experienced, and I would like your thoughts on if we encountered one. We used to joke about the name of a certain Navajo legend, using it to scare our friend who had no idea what it was when he got high. Admittedly, at the time it was funny. However, that all changed on Friday, June 13th between the hours of 2 to 3 a.m. No, I'm not joking about the time or date. A group of friends and I were hanging out in a cul-de-sac that borders a large hill where no houses are. The hill is surrounded by houses all along its borders, but a large chunk is only brush and trees with trails. Less than half a mile away is a large nature preserve bordered by mountains that lead to Black Star Canyon, California. My friends wanted to smoke some weed and were being a bit loud. I didn't want to disturb my neighbors, so I suggested we walk up the trail a bit and smoke there. While on the trail overlooking the houses, we heard a loud snapping sound, like a tree branch snapping, not like twigs. We heard this sound around 10 or so times, in irregular intervals, over the course of around 15 minutes. My friends didn't pay much mind to it, but I was focused on it. I didn't smoke, so I was sober through all of this. While listening to it, I thought a name. Eventually, we decided to go back to the cars and closer to the houses. Then, while walking at the end of the trail, we heard a loud crying. It sounded like it could have been a child. The crying was loud and went on for more than 10 minutes. By this time, we were at the cars talking about the crying. The time by now was probably closer to 3 a.m. by this point. Then, while we were talking about the crying, I heard some twigs snap in the brush on the hill behind the cars. I turned and looked, scanning the hill. I thought I saw something move, but it could have been the breeze moving a bush. Then we all heard a quiet, quick whistle from the hill. I turned to my friends and asked them if they heard that. Then, when they said they did, I then asked if any of them did that. They all shook their heads. When we realized this, we ran into the cars and drove down the hill to the parking lot of a CVS. While there, we all got into one car to talk about what happened. Then we saw a coyote cross in front of the car, maybe 100 feet away, looked at us, then left. I've taken this experience as a massive warning never to play around or disrespect its name again. I went from a skeptic who only enjoyed subreddits like this and listening to horror stories on the internet, to downright terrified to even think the name or be alone outside. The truth of the reality is, we are a bunch of 20-year-olds who just freaked ourselves out, but it was just a strange combination of events after fucking around. I urge everyone to not make the same mistake we did, joking around and saying the name. My girlfriend saw a crawler in her remote hometown almost 20 years ago. By Glittering Fox 9769. I thought I'd share this story since it's something that should be out there. She says crawlers, or the rake, are the closest representation of what she saw. Rural Ontario, Canada, by Lake Simcoe in a small fishing village. She was about 9 or 10 when this happened. She and her cousins were playing by the lake in a small clearing, and next to them was a forest patch of land near some houses. There is a mossy and rocky slope here with a few flat depressions in the rock on the way. While walking away from the clearing toward the woods, through the trees, all three of them saw a strange gray humanoid figure crouched down as if it was eating. No noises. They couldn't make out what was on the ground, but it was some sort of large brown mammal. The crawler had a bald gray head with a humanoid face, but it had no fat whatsoever on its body. It was long and slender, and the hands and fingers were very long and horror-like, all gray and smooth. It never noticed the kids. They were obviously horrified, but being children, there wasn't much to do but run away and go to dinner. When they returned to the spot that evening, there were several coyotes that had been absolutely shredded apart. Nothing like a predator attack or a bear, which were not common for the area, especially on coyotes. They're almost always just roadkill. and to see what is essentially a pack of coyotes all together, dead, is almost always a human occurrence. The thing here, though, is this was a fishing and cottage town. Most people don't even live there year round, and there's never wildlife problems as there's no need to defend fishing poles and cottages from occasional coyotes. It would have been known by all residents at the time if 6 to 7 coyotes got put down and dumped there. She says they were ripped up as if something was gunning straight for the organs, and nothing else. Holes ripped straight into their carcasses with guts splayed everywhere as if they were pulled, not picked at or anything. More blood than fur. She relates it to the alien cow consumption stuff. It wasn't eating like an animal, but consuming nonetheless, if that makes sense. The only thing that vicious are fishers and wolverines, and then they certainly won't take down several coyotes and drag them to the same spot either. Very odd story, and every time we visit that spot, I get the heebie-jeebies. The land has a lot of native and settler history, with many high strangeness occurrences reported, and not the only report of rake-like entities in the greater region. My girlfriend says she had absolutely zero awareness of creepypastas, old internet horror stuff or long gray beings before, and it is corroborated to this day by the cousins. Freaky shit. We are both, by all means, quite skeptical people. But given the area and how adamant my girlfriend and her cousins were, it's hard for me to discount Halloween encounter. By Swimming Wrangler 3650. Me and my buddies were fucking around close to 11 p.m. on Halloween 2024. We walked down our cul-de-sac where there's a bunch of woods for miles. No lights except our phones, and my dumbass decides to say, "Hey, y'all know what skinwalkers are?" My friend says, "Yeah, you're not supposed to whistle or something at night, right?" Or something along those lines. Anyway, we start saying skinwalker, whistling, everything you're not supposed to do. All of the sudden, there's this gut-wrenching deep scream from I have no idea where because it was that loud. Me and my friends take off running as it keeps screaming over and over. 5 minutes later, after the adrenaline wears off, we go back down with one more friend who thinks we're messing with him. Not even halfway down, we hear a low whimper, then it happens again. Once more we take off running. I still have no idea what it was. Couldn't sleep that night, always felt like I was being watched. I'm a big conspiracy theorist, but never thought that could happen to me. I know how it sounds because it was Halloween, but there was no decorations. We made sure everyone was gone before we went down there because we were partying. When I tell you that sound couldn't been human, I mean it. Strange experience near the river. By something edgy. This happened about an hour ago, and I wanted to post it before the details fade. I live next to the Little Econ River in Orlando, and have been wandering around in this section of woods for about 2 years now since I moved into this house. I am very familiar with the area even though there are no trails, and can even navigate at night with no flashlight with good accuracy. This is a narrow strip of wilderness between the river and the neighborhood surrounding, but there is little to no human activity out there that I have seen. There is a good amount of wildlife out there, lots of deer, hogs, owls, occasional bear, and other Florida-type animals. I have always considered the owls to be friendly and good-spirited in the many close encounters I have had with them. Tonight I went for a walk alone after work to wind down and distress from the day. The walk out to the river was perfectly normal, and while I sat by the river for 20-30 minutes, nothing seemed amiss. It was starting to get dark, and I got up to head back when things started getting strange. Keep in mind I'm only about a 1.5 mile walk from my front door, but I'm in an area that looks like untouched ancient Florida. A few 100 feet from the river I hear an owl pretty close to me, so I start to look for it to see if I can get a picture. It hoots a few more times and then flies off, and I finally see it. As soon as it flies off, I smell the unmistakable smell of rotting meat. I like collecting skulls, so I began to look for the source of the smell to see if there's a good skull. I started walking around the area trying to find the source, but as I moved from where I was, the smell faded, and it would get stronger in one specific spot. I'm looking all over in this spot that is about 6 feet in diameter, where I can smell it, but can't find anything, even though it smells like there should be a whole deer or something dead right there. I look into the trees and still see nothing, and then the smell suddenly goes away completely. I have had some strange experiences out in these woods before, but nothing like this, so when the smell disappeared I knew it was time to leave. As I started walking away, the smell came back, just as strong as before, but in a different spot about 20 feet away from the first spot. I looked into that spot for a minute or two before the smell vanished again, at which point I knew I needed to leave the woods. I started walking calmly but swiftly back the way I came, and the smell followed me for about a minute through the most dense part of the woods. Against my instincts, I did look back several times to see if anything was following me, but never saw anything. I had been listening to music this whole time and didn't dare turn it off to try to hear anything around me. I just kept up the pace and finally made it out of the woods to the main park area. As I got out of the woods, I started getting strong chills all the way down my spine, and I half expected to turn around and see some creature watching me from the edge of the woods, though I didn't see anything. I've felt an energy in these woods since the first time I went out there, but I've never had an experience actually break into the physical realm where I could actually smell something that didn't seem to have a source. I took the same route out and back and didn't smell anything on my way out. Now that it's completely dark, I'm gonna go back out there and see if the smell is still there. Encounter in a Suburban Area by Riri Butterfly. I just wanted to share my experience/encounter as we haven't been able to make sense of it until this day. About 8 years ago, my boyfriend and I were parked on a suburban street down the road from where he lived. This was near midnight, and the street was completely quiet and no cars in sight. We are in Australia. We were talking when suddenly we noticed this figure in front of us. We both described it exactly the same. It was very tall, very skinny, beige color, long arms, long legs, no hair, and was hunched over. It was not running, but moving faster than usual walking pace. It was like creeping about. We both froze and said, "Do you see what's in front of us right now?" We were so shocked and scared. We'd never seen anything like it and never heard of skinwalkers before. Until now, actually. It stopped moving, turned its head, and looked straight at us. It tilted its head a little looking at us, and then kept on moving forward. I thought I saw it smile at us, but now I can't be sure. I felt like I was crazy at the time. As soon as it took its eyes off us, my boyfriend turned on the car, as we tried to follow it, though it turned a nearby corner, and we lost it so quickly. We looked down the street and couldn't see it anywhere. I think we were just very curious at the time, like we didn't know whether this was an alien or what. We went straight home. I was so scared to leave again. We felt crazy when we tried to describe to others what we had seen. My dad claims he encountered a skinwalker. By Anonymous. My dad very seriously told me a story and swears on his life it happened to him and a group of friends that were there. Back when he was at university in Colorado, he was part of a rock climbing group. One day they go out for a sunrise climb in a mountain, and it was not completely light out yet. In the distance they saw a figure, but since it was still a bit dark, they couldn't completely see who it was, and thought it was a fellow climber, so they waved. He says it looked like just a man standing up, and it waved back and then turned and morphed into a four-legged animal. What he says looked like a wolf and ran away. Everyone in the group saw this, not just him, and he said everyone was so confused and creeped out. It's a short story and ends there, but when he told it to me, he said it was a skinwalker. However, I have learned that skinwalkers are more evil and often lure people to them. This seemed like a harmless, friendly encounter, so I'm not sure. But not long after he told me this story, I had a bizarre dream where they appeared. Basically, they told me without words that they exist between our worlds. They do not know what they are. They want to be alive. They are not evil, but at the same time they see humans as food or energy, like a bear sees moose, but more like a predisposed bacteria. They have self-awareness without full consciousness. They express a form of instinctual hunger, blind striving, and a lack of moral framework, not out of malice but nature. Mimic Behavior by Bucket 57354. This is a true story. Back in 2019, my son and I joined my parents on a trip to Cornville, Arizona. Cornville is an unincorporated community about 20 minutes west of Sedona, basically bordering the Coconino National Forest. For some more context, we were staying in an Airbnb that backed up to a huge rocky valley. I mean nothing for miles. It was pitch black at night, and there were only two other homes on the street, and we were at the end. My son also has autism. He was nonverbal and 2 years old at the time. He has a very distinct wail, at least to me as his mom. He also needed a close eye kept on him, because he would try to Harry Houdini out of the house, as is common with many autistic children. My son was sleeping in a cot in my parents' room, which had a sliding lockable glass door to the backyard in it. I was in the room next to them, but it faced the front of the house. Once everyone went to bed, I would stay up and talk to my now husband on the phone, and do some art. One night, I remember just feeling absolutely freaked out and paranoid in the living area, which had huge bay windows to the backyard. I felt like there were things outside of my view, lurking in the dark. They could see me, but I couldn't see them. I tried my best not to think about it though, and decided to just go to bed, because I must have just smoked too much and was freaking myself out. I remember not being able to sleep. I just kept laying there, scared to breathe, scared to close my eyes. I felt like if I closed my eyes, whatever it was would get me. I was too afraid to move, to draw attention to myself. As I was laying there from outside of the window, I heard my son start crying and wailing, and I know my son. That was my son's cry, outside of the window, in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, with dangerous terrain surrounding us. I immediately jumped out of bed, ran to where my parents were sleeping to wake them up and help me, and to yell at them for not keeping the door locked. I flung the door open in a panic and saw my son, fast asleep in his cot. I woke my mom up and asked if he had been crying. He hadn't. He was sound asleep and didn't make a peep for the last couple of hours. I didn't speak about what happened, just apologized and made sure the door was locked. I told her I must have just dreamt it. I know I didn't. My mom woke up in the morning and found me asleep on the floor of the closet, with all of the lights on and the door barricaded shut. I still don't like thinking about it. I've never told the story out loud. I don't acknowledge it for the most part. I refuse to say any type of name after that. I don't listen to any content about it. I try to mind my business. Sometimes while I'm outside at night, in my own backyard, way out in southeast Wisconsin, I get sudden chills and a panic that tells me not to move fast, not to act scared, and to get the hell back in the house and lock the doors. I refuse to go back to northern Arizona. I will never ever go back there. I have no idea what was outside of that window, and I never want to know. Possible encounter by Outrageous Nobody 468. I'm on vacation in a small town with a population of 700 in North Dakota, about 30 minutes from the Canadian border, with my mom and my boyfriend. We go here every summer, and this is the first time I've had an experience like this. Keep in mind my brother and his wife, whose house we're staying at for the week, has 7 chickens that are all accounted for and put into the coop around sunset. It was around midnight, and my boyfriend and I were on the deck in the backyard of my brother's house, and we had already been talking about skinwalkers previously. Yes, a stupid idea. Then after the conversation, switched topics over about 30 minutes. In the middle of my boyfriend's sentence, I heard a chicken's balk, only raising in tone and pitch. I know what a chicken sounds like. It was not this. This was something trying to sound like a chicken. Chickens have a bit more of a gurgly and rough call, This was far too smooth, and definitely did not come from a chicken's vocal cords. It lasted for about 4 to 5 seconds. I instantly shushed my boyfriend, and it stopped 2-ish seconds after he stopped talking. I asked him if he heard that, and he said yes. About 5 seconds after the sound, we heard what seemed to be 1 or 2 footsteps on the grass, around 12 feet away from us in total, and about 5 feet away from the deck. Right where we had heard these steps was the exact spot that one of my family members had given his granddaughter a chicken to hold. I can't help but wonder if whatever entity that made that noise may have seen that, and thought it could lure someone to it. We sat in silence for a sec, and then we started talking about what just happened. Minutes went by with both of us terrified to move. Eventually, we gathered our stuff and went inside for the night. I'm open to any ideas on what this could have been, realistic and paranormal.